Drink, run, be silent. I tripped, the lights cut. Then hours passed in a place where doors disappear and monsters hunt. This is what happened. Back then I was still living in the dorms. Like every college or university, we had our own traditions, stupid challenges, and student-made games. Ours was something called the 3x500 sprint. It was a running game. The dorm we lived in was a massive complex, 3 long buildings arranged in a half circle. They were connected on the 3rd floor by an insanely long corridor. That hallway was said to be roughly 3,500 feet long, so about 1,500 feet total. And twice a year, the 3x500 sprint was held. They would wedge open every single door along the hallway so you could make one continuous sprint from one end to the other. But of course, it wasn't that simple. The race took place in the middle of the night, so you had to run in complete silence, quiet enough that the supervisors wouldn't hear you. The lights along the hallway were on a timer. They stayed on for 3 minutes, then the entire floor went pitch black. And if that wasn't enough, the whole thing started with a drinking challenge. Right before the sprint, every participant had to down a 15-ounce cocktail. It was a warm, disgusting mix of nearly every type of alcohol you could imagine, and you had to drink it all in one go. That was our little tribal dorm tradition. At least, that was the game part. There was also a legend. If someone didn't make it across before the lights went out, they never came back. I was a second-year law student when I decided to join the race. I downed the cocktail and the race was on. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. No way I could let Neil beat me. He'd never shut up about it for the rest of the year. I was doing pretty well. I was in second place in the race, but then my body started to get tired, maybe because of the alcohol. So one of the guys behind me tried to overtake me. Our legs got tangled. I went flying and crashed hard onto the floor. The onlookers gasped in unison. The guy who tried to pass me also fell, but he was burning with competitive spirit. He jumped up and kept running, limping as he went. I just lay there on the ground, humiliated. I wasn't far from the finish, damn it. But I stayed down, staring at the ceiling, and then the lights went out. 3 minutes were up. I sat up and rubbed my head. "Okay, guys, turn the lights back on," I called out. But there was no answer. The hallway was completely dark. I couldn't see a single light. Couldn't even hear the others anymore. "Hello? Can someone please turn the lights back on?" I started feeling around and found the walls, but they were strangely smooth, not like the old, familiar dorm walls. I pulled my phone out of my pocket to use the flashlight. That's when I saw it. The hallway was the same, but the doors were gone. There weren't any, at least not as far as I could see, because my phone's light didn't seem to pierce the darkness. I could barely see 1 yard ahead of me. Where the hell was I? I jerked my head around nervously. What the hell is going on? Are the others messing with me, or what the fuck is this? The alcohol had already worn off. I slowly started moving forward, trying to find the light switch. But the walls were smooth, like mirrors, no doors, no cracks, no switch anywhere. I stumbled forward through the darkness, using my phone for light as best I could. No signal, no service at all. What the hell is this place? I must have taken a bad fall too. My leg was aching, and my arm hurt like hell. This place was starting to really get to me. How did I even end up here? "Hello?" I shouted into the darkness. "Is anyone there?" Nothing, no response. I was alone, standing in the thick blackness, trembling, growing more and more tense. Then suddenly I heard a voice. It sounded like it came from behind me, down the opposite end of the hallway. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I turned around, eyes straining to see into the dark. That was my voice. I stood frozen, an echo, maybe. I figured it was better to just keep hobbling in the original direction. Maybe I really would find a way out. I didn't think the last building could be far now. The finish line should be somewhere around there. At least, that's what I told myself. The darkness felt suffocating. I could barely see anything, even with my phone's flashlight on. How can darkness be this thick? It was like the light couldn't even cut through it. Then I heard something. Footsteps. Distant, muffled. Someone was stomping, or more like thundering footsteps approaching, maybe even running. I froze in the dark, heart racing, waiting to hear what it was, and it definitely sounded like it was getting closer. No matter how hard I stared into the black, I couldn't see a thing. The pounding footsteps grew louder until I could feel the floor trembling under my feet. Then something moved in the dark. In the beam of my phone's light, I saw a massive shape. I couldn't tell if it was human or something else, but it was so big it stretched from floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Terrified, I stumbled backward. Whatever it was, I started running, but it sounded like it was running too. I heard the stomping, not like something with 2 feet, more like 100 pounding footsteps chasing after me. The hallway didn't change. No matter how far I ran, it just kept going endlessly, and the thing behind me was still gaining. I ran until my aching leg finally gave out and I collapsed again. I lay sprawled on the floor. My phone had flown out of my hand and was shining up at the ceiling. I covered my head with my arms. Whatever was coming, I hoped I could somehow shield myself from it. And then I realized the stomping was gone, like it had vanished into thin air. Once again, that dead silence settled over the hallway, along with the crushing dark. I crawled over to my phone and snatched it up. It was the only solid thing left in this nightmare of a place. Once I pulled myself together and managed to stand up, I finally noticed the hallway had changed. Now, on both sides, doors lined the walls as far as I could see, but even now, my phone's light couldn't pierce the swirling darkness ahead. None of the doors worked. I had been trying them one after another for what felt like minutes, but every single one led to nothing but solid wall, like someone had bricked them all shut. I was terrified and hopeless. How the hell was I supposed to get out of here? What was this place? But at least I'd learned one thing. If I kept moving, the place seemed to shift. So I started walking again, deeper into the darkness, lighting the way just enough to see a couple feet ahead of me. The doors continued, lined up endlessly on both sides of the hallway. I moved forward cautiously. I didn't even bother with the doors anymore. There was no point. Then suddenly, as I shined my light ahead, I saw a pair of human legs. I recoiled in shock. A skeletal man sat on the ground, his face buried in his hands. His long, tangled hair hung down to his shoulders, snow white like that of an old man. His clothes were ragged and hung off him in tatters. He looked like a homeless person. I didn't want anything to do with him. I'd seen enough horror movies to know better than to fall for something like this. I tried to quietly sneak past, but then the old man sprang to his feet. He was a reeking, toothless thing. His eyes were cloudy and gray with cataracts. He lunged at me, clawing with bony hands, striking me wildly. I could barely shove him off. He was screaming the whole time. But I couldn't understand a word. It didn't even sound like he was saying anything that made sense. I grabbed him and pushed him away from me. He slammed into the wall, but it was like he didn't even feel it. He just jumped up and bolted into the darkness, still shrieking as he disappeared. I stood there gasping for breath. My heart was pounding. Every fiber of my being wanted one thing only: to get the hell out of here, if that was even possible. According to the clock on my phone, I had been wandering these dark hallways for at least 4 hours. At least the phone still worked, though the battery was running low. I hated myself for not charging it earlier in the day, but what really got to me was the hallway itself. I was starting to lose it. I kept feeling like something was following me, or that I heard footsteps behind me, matching mine, ready to pounce the moment I let my guard down. But there was nothing, just the darkness and the endless row of doors. It was maddening. And then my fear came true. Someone was lying on the ground ahead of me. I saw their bony legs first. They were slumped by the wall, right next to one of the doors. The figure didn't move. I didn't think they were alive anymore. I stepped a little closer and saw it clearly. A dried-out corpse. I hurried past, but further down the hallway, more bodies appeared. One of them was leaning against a door, also dead. They just kept appearing. The hallway was lined with corpses, and they gave off a hideous, rotting stench. Some of them looked ancient, just bare bones. Others looked freshly dead. Each body was in a different position. One was gripping a doorknob, another knelt facing the wall. Many were simply sprawled out on the ground or slumped against the wall in silence. I didn't know why I kept walking through this corridor of death, but I didn't want to turn around, and I sure as hell didn't want to stop. Covering my nose, I weaved my way between the bodies, step by step through the thick dark. Eventually, I came across the corpse of a young girl. She was lying sprawled across a doorway, and then, far off in the distance, deep within the darkness, I saw a single glowing point. It pierced the thick black, and it looked like it was calling to me. I hurried toward the light. It seemed impossibly far away, but it was the only hope I had. The bodies were still lying around me, but it felt like there were fewer of them now. Another sign, maybe, that I was heading in the right direction, toward the exit. I was practically running. The light was growing closer. The corpses were now scattered sparsely along the hallway. I didn't see the large man's body in time. It was sprawled halfway across the corridor. I stepped on him, tripped, and slammed to the ground. On my knees next to the corpse, I stared at the light in desperation. And that's when I noticed it. It was swaying, moving. It was coming toward me. A breeze swept through the hallway, rank and putrid, reeking of decay. I'd never smelled anything like it. It was the stench of death. I scrambled to my feet. The light was almost there. My throat clenched with panic. My legs trembled, and then it arrived. What I saw in front of me was a nightmare. A massive, slithering mound of human remains was creeping toward me. Limbs, torsos, and chunks of flesh fused together into a grotesque living mass. One severed arm reached forward, holding a glowing orb like some hellish deep-sea anglerfish. From between bones, a jagged mouth had formed, gaping open in the dark. I turned and ran. I didn't care what I stepped on, what corpses I kicked, or what part of this twisted place I crashed through. The thing was chasing me, churning and gurgling behind me, its slimy bulk oozing forward, a writhing avalanche of flesh and bones. And then I saw it. One of the doors up ahead was glowing, or at least it looked like a light had been turned on behind it. Maybe this was it, my only way out. The creature was gaining. I could feel the heat of its breath, if you could call it that, reek pouring from its jagged mouth, clinging to my skin. The door stayed where it was. The light behind it glowed, calling to me. I reached it. I threw it open and dove inside. Whatever was in there, I'd take it. I woke up in the hallway, the real hallway, the normal dorm. I sat up with a scream. I had been lying on the floor. The others just stared at me, wide-eyed. Everyone was there, everyone who had joined the race. Neil rushed over to me. "Hey man, we turned the lights back on. You're okay," he said, trying to calm me down. "What? Neil? What the hell is this? Where the fuck am I?" "The lights went off," Neil said, "and now we turned them back on." According to them, not even a second had passed, and I hadn't been gone for hours at all. I'm never playing any fucking game again.